the idea is that we have six people and few are presenting 2 cases. So
I'm presenting only 1 case.
Yeah, that's fine, sir. There's no restriction on time. If any case is not presented, sir, we'll have it in February.
Yeah, okay, fine. Now this is a very simple
It is
case.
nothing official here, sir. It's like the morning class of PGI only.
Okay, fine. No, this is as I have mentioned, I'm a novice at CTO, but Dr. Smith is very fond of me and he tends to invite me for his every class. I can't say no to him. So although this is a very simple case, I thought I should present it and should not disappoint him. So okay. Now this is also a 54-year-old male, the long-standing diabetic, had effort dyspnea class 3 for last 6 months. This was his ECG. This did not reveal any old infarction. There was some loss of R waves, as you will see in the precordial leads, but there is no definitive evidence of any old infarction. There are no Q waves. I didn't do troponin because his history didn't suggest that it was an acute case. Now this was just a echo to show you that the wall thickness has been well preserved. I don't have a video here, but these are the still images which show you there is MRTR. The PA pressure is significantly elevated to around 44, 45. There is a near global LV hypokinesis, and the EF was around 25 to 30%. But basically, what I want to show is that wall thickness was well preserved, so it was not any case of old prior infarct, because it will carry meaning here. As you will see, when I did angio, there was a flush LED total occlusion, and so that's it. It's a total LED flush occlusion. Retrogradely, it was filling well, and roughly the total occlusion was more than 20 millimeters length. So the JCTO score was maybe around 2. There was some angulation, 2 to 3. That was the JCTO score. There was no significant lesion in other coronaries, and I was wondering why he had a near global LV hypokinesis. But it was definitely a total LAD. So whatever, don't have any viability investigations here, but I think the LV IVS thickness was well preserved. There was no evidence or history-wise or any ECG-wise evidence of infarction. So I thought the only benefit that he can get to improve his LV function was by opening the LED. So I decided to go ahead and open this LED. The problem, because it was nearly a blunt, you will see it was a blunt occlusion. And so initial my hesitation was whether I could get a wire anchoring into the ostial and then with the microcatheter support push it. Fortunately, after some attempts, because the wire tended to go many times into the branches, but after some attempts and some angulation with some manipulation, I got the wire to go into the LED. The wire used was my, this is a Whisper is my workhorse wire. I know it's not the best of the wires, but still I've been used for last 10 years to Whisper, so I tend to use Whisper. Now with the micro catheter across, I've pushed, and with the retrograde injection, you will see here, there was still the distal cap is not penetrated and the wire is going somewhere in the branch. Then change this wire to the XT wire, changed it to XT wire, and then changed it with that XT wire could be manipulated into the wire, which I thought the vessel was LED, because this is a cranial view. You will see this was an epicranial view. So I thought this is the LED, and then manipulated the wire into this vessel, got the micro catheter across, it was a fine cross, then changed to Whisper wire again, did sequential. Yeah.
हाँ सर ठीक है.
I request Muzaffar, please mute others other than the speaker.
Okay. So sorry. So the got the micro catheter across and changed the wire, then subsequently dilated with sequential dilatation of initially 1.25, 1.5, and this is a 2 by 15 millimeter balloon. After this was the picture, and now I knew that I was not into the LAD. The LAD was going right here. Initially, so my initially, fortunately, I didn't dilate in this place. I dilated it proximal to that branch, because as you see, this loop has caused some dissection distally in the vessel. Fortunately, it is intramyocardial, so I didn't expect it to cause much problems. So the vessel was well opened up. But here you will see the lesion was right from the ostium. So had to stent it, had to use a long stent. This was a 3 by 48 synergy. And that's it. The result was good. There was some, you will see the dissection here of the, probably the large septal that I had. This is a large septal which I had cannulated. The loop had caused some dissection here and probably intramyocardial rupture, but the patient was absolutely hemodynamically stable. The echo didn't show any effusion, and I got away with that, and there was no compromise at all to the ostium of circumflex. Now, this is a very recent case. As you will see, this is December 14. This I did it. So I think it's too early for the LV function to improve. At discharge, I did echo. There was marginal improvement, but actually it was more subjective, and I don't know how much time and whether it will improve or not. But that's his only chance, I thought, so I gave him that chance. That's it.
So that's a very good case to start to set our program ruling. Dr. Ajay Swami, Dr. Ram, Dr. Bali sir, any comments? Any?
Thanks, Smith, for the opportunity. Gunnath sir, lovely case, very nice case. There are one or two things which we may have done differently, but your end result is perfectly acceptable. We would probably have done a bilateral injection before starting.
Yes, yes.
And,
diagnostic angiogram I didn't show you.
Yeah. So that is the most thing. How to plan the procedure is the diagnostic angiogram. And first wire, we would probably have used a workhorse wire and then replaced it. We have, I mean, in our practice, whatever you do is absolutely fine for you. Everybody works out his own technique. We will never use a coated wire on, how do you say, with a microcatheter. The wires that we would use, I mean, and that is a normal coated wire or a polymer tipped wire. We would use an XTR or an XTA as Neeraj sir uses. And then most of the time, we should have got through with that alone, where the whisper will go. Otherwise, a very nicely done case. And we would have used retrograde injection. We hardly ever give antegrade injections if it's a long segment CTO. Only retrograde injections for the whole, for the entire, how do we say, for the entire procedure. And exchange, everything else is absolutely fine. We exchange for a workhorse wire the moment we are through, and then dilate. And if available, the IVUS will give us the correct size of the CTO segment. And we would always try to assess viability before doing it. So that is another slight difference, but very nice case, excellent case.
Okay, one more case, which I'll just present where I failed, and I want your opinions. Now, this is in fact, a brother of a physician, my friend physician, and he came with acute entry infarct, LAD, ostial total occlusion, and I opened it. So that was not an issue. That time I found he had a total mid RCA total CTO. And subsequently, I decided whether after 4 or 5 days of, this is just a haphazard, so you'll have to bear with me because I have not put it in a PowerPoint. Now this is that mid RCA CTO. I tried to open it. I thought I wouldn't get a wire across.
Sir, we are not able to see your screen. You
Okay,
need to share that screen.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Before we do that, Dr. Parale.
Yes.
Good evening. This is Dr. Neeraj Bhalla.
Yes.
Very nicely done case. Very nicely done case. The only issue I have is that you park your wire in unfortunately down that very large septal,
Yes. Yes.
and then you were working. So if you had contralateral injections, you could have and probably should have rectified.
Yes,
This.
in fact, all those injections which you are seeing are contralateral.
No. I'm saying that you could have rectified your wire position, and before you
I know.
you
But the
might have
contralateral
unfortunately.
injection suggested that this was a vessel which could only be seen. So I thought this is the LAD because this was a epicranial view.
Right. No, but
So I thought this
so-
is the LAD.
So the principle in CTO operating is that, keep looking coaxially, because that's how we make out that which one plane will always be misleading for us where we are. Maybe that is something that you could have.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know how to. Okay, I'll just go back and come back. Is it?
Sir, now it's visible, sir.
It's visible?
Yeah, your screen is visible.
Okay. Because now this is it. So I thought I will not be able to get a wire across, but I got a wire across easily. It's again a whisper wire which I got it across easily, and with little micro. But from here onwards, it's a problem. I couldn't get the balloon across. So this is it. This is a 1 millimeter, 1/6 millimeter balloon, and there was no significant calcification which was seen here. I inflated this balloon, thought I could get across, but no, I tried everything. I changed this wire to a harder wire. I changed it to XT. I changed it to later even a Gaia 2 wire. I changed the fine cross to other micro catheter, but I couldn't get across this. The only thing which I didn't do, because he was slight of a VIP case, that's the brother of mine, that I didn't rupture the balloon. That's the only thing which I didn't do. And whether that rupturing a balloon and mediated dissection would have helped me to get across, I don't know. So your suggestions on this.
So in this setting, granuloplasty, as they has been called, is a valid option if you think that this is an important CTO to get across, and you could have ruptured that balloon, or even inflated it proximally and rupture, and that does help. Sometimes in this situation, if you could have got a rota wire across and rotablated across, that would have made a passage for you to have completed the procedure. These are my two suggestions that you could have tried.
So first, I'd like to be sure that the wire is in the. Sorry, Bali sir, please go ahead.
I think when we're talking about a balloon uncrossable lesion, the first thing we need to do is granuloplasty, and second is we need to find out that the guide catheter is giving us good support, and that we can get either by deep throating the guide catheter, or getting a guide liner, or doing an anchor wire or an anchor balloon. These are the various techniques which you can use to cross the lesion. And now lately what has been described is that you take an 8 French guide catheter. Take an 8 guide catheter and put in a guide liner, deep as much as you can go. And along with the guide liner, you put a balloon and inflate the balloon in the vessel. So that holds the guide liner very firmly in that, and you can cross the lesion. But that is part of the story when it is a balloon uncrossable lesion. The last thing you can do is you leave the wire there and go with another wire. And maybe you can cross that with a second wire, and that makes a different channel. And you are, because sometimes there can be calcium, and you may go subintimal and go and then make an entry into that. So these are the SOPs which we follow when it is a balloon uncrossable lesion. I have not seen the retrograde angiogram of this RCO total occlusion, which should actually tell us that what was the type of this lesion. So we need to find out that was the LAD filling retrogradely this RCA, and what was going on. So here what we find out is that probably the guide is not giving that much of support.
No, I did use a guideline.
What was surprising is that your guide wire has gone very smoothly.
It has gone very smoothly. That's what I thought it would be just 10-15 minutes procedure. I did try a guide liner. Of course, other things I didn't try, but I did try a guide liner, but it didn't cross. One and a half hours I was there trying to push it, but I didn't get balloon across.
Our approach would be first to be sure whether we are in the true lumen distal.
Yeah,
axis.
I
Again,
entered the different branches. That I made sure.
and this is femoral axis or radial axis, sir?
Femoral.
So some things that we do is sometimes you can exchange for put in a long sheet. If you can put in a 55 centimeter sheet, that kind of enhances support. Second thing is to put in a wire into an anchoring into another branch, either the conus or the RV branch, and anchor the balloon there. Third is, as I said to use, if you have got a tornus, sometimes it is of great help to get past this. And if the tornus does not work, the next thing is the granuloplasty. And if that does not work, in that case, we will rota. With this combination, most of the time one should be able to get through. But the most important, how aggressive one will be depends on how sure we are that we are in the distal true lumen.
Sir, I may add, sir, laser also works very well
Laser
in
also works.
such cases.
Say
Very
everybody
well.
is not so
Yeah.
well equipped as you are. Kya
No,
kare?
no, sir, that because I have few cases where it has worked very well. Sir. It just passes like a hot knife in butter. So probably even before granuloplasty or others, if that's an option, it's a good option.
If you are sure that the true wire
Yes,
is in the
yes.
true lumen, granuloplasty is not at all unsafe. It's very, very safe. There is no problem.
So usual balloon would be, sir, the size of the artery that we are seeing, or it would be smaller than that in diameter?
No, you use the smallest balloon that you can reach. Most of the time, you just need to create a little space. It is not a bigger balloon. The bigger balloon will never reach. Even the smaller balloon, the marker or that tip is not going to, and then you rupture it, or sometimes just proximal.
Sometimes, sir, what I do is that I pass a small balloon 1.5 or 1 and then try just prior to where to the end it can go as distal as possible, and then try to inflate. Sometimes that creates a crack and the balloon passes next
Absolutely.
time.
So that's what I have
Absolutely.
done here, but didn't work.
So a
So,
Corsair,
actually-
Corsair microcatheter has also got a tapered tip and works like a tonus. It's braided. It works like a tonus, and maybe that could have rather than. Did you use a fine cross, Dr.
Yeah,
Panal?
I used fine cross.
Maybe a Corsair, will get more into it and give little more purchase, and then maybe. But always very frustrating to find wire is crossed and balloon not crossing.
Yeah.
Then you have to give up the case. Yes.
Yeah.
But all of us have faced such situations. So rota is another good option in absence of laser. That if you can get the rota wire across, it works very well. And then you can, of course, you have to be in the true lumen.
So we move to the next case, sir, if permitted. Saurabh, if you are ready with the next case.
Dr. Gurunath should stop screen share, and then I think.
So Gurnath sir wanted to be the youngest, so he started first.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sumit sir, for giving me an opportunity, and I feel honored and privileged to present my case on this platform. And it's a very simple case. However, for me, it was very tough. So it's a case of LAD artery CTO. Regarding the background history of this patient, he's a 41-year-old male who first presented to us in pre-COVID in May 2020, and he was thrombolized with an active place in our emergency. And then angio was done after 24 hours. That was ST of mid-LAD cutoff. Rest of the arteries were normal. So we did the echo, and echo showed the LAD was hypokinetic with ejection fraction of 30-35%. Our plan was to do a thrust thallium of the inducible ischemia. Patient was asymptomatic till 1 year, and now he came with complaint of angina auscultation. We increased his nitrates and increased his beta blocker and added the CCPs. And from last 3 months, he again complained of the increased angina to class 3. and 2D echo was done. The resistive of LED artery was still hypokinetic, but ejection fraction was 40 to 45%. This was his baseline angiogram. And we had taken bilateral SS, 6 French femoral JL 3.5 for the LED, and Tiger through left radial. This is LED alveocaudal view that shows the cutoff, that showed the LED cutoff at the mid LED cutoff with blunt end, and this was the LA cranial view that there was suggestive of LED mid cutoff with no anterior gate channel. This was the RAO view that was suggestive of LED mid cutoff with no any channel, anterior gate channels. That was looking it was suggestive of LED CTO, and JCTO score was 3. So as I used to see in PGI, the first step is to go through Fielder XT over the microcatheter. We have the pro-grade microcatheter available with us, and this was the angiogram with pro-grade microcatheter and Fielder XT in situ. And this was unfortunately our Fielder XT holded the blunt end of the CTO. However, after manipulating the PT filter wire for 10 minutes, whole assembly used to come back inside the sinus. So I changed the Fielder XT with Gaia 2. This was an angiogram with Gaia 2. And after manipulating for 15 minutes with Gaia 2, and I thought of that I might go into the false lumen, or I'm creating the false lumen, or it's going into the subintimal. It's subintimal because I'm feeling a lot of resistance. So this was the retrograde injection with Gaia 2. So Gaia 2 in situ, and one of my assistant was telling me, no, you are going into the false channel. And then I thought of changing into the Gaia 3 as it was not manipulating. And see, by taking the Gaia 3, it crossed immediately within 1 minute. The LED was tortuous, so I was not sure that I was in LED. I thought it was a high tip Gaia 3, so it might go into subintimally into the pericardium. So I confirmed it into RAO and LAO views. RAO view showed that I enter inside the diagonal, and LAO view showed that it's a diagonal, not the LED. So I again positioned the Gaia 2 into the LED, and after confirming that I am in the LED through retrograde injection, I took 1.5 ml thermo balloon. This was the and after 155 mm balloon, I took 215 mm balloon, and this was the angiogram after direction with 215 mm balloon. Then I did stent from LED proximal to distal LED, crossover to diagonal with Zions 338 millimeter. And this was the before stent, and this was after stent, and diagonal got pinched. And then I post-dilated the LED stent by the LED stent. This is a post-dilatation, and this was stent boost to look there so that I cannot able to compress the diagonal ostium more. After post-dilation of LED stent, there was pinching at the level of diagonal. So I did the FKB of D1 and LED, and then OCT of D1, which is suggestive of clear origin of diagonal with no dissection. So with no dissection, and this was my final angiogram after putting the stent crossover to diagonal. And after that, I am able to. After that, someone told me that there are a lot of perforations. If we look carefully, there are a lot of collaterals that are going into the LV cavity. But my wire was not inside, but I went inside that septal. So I thought I might did the perforation, but patient was fine. If we look into the RAO caudal view, still we are able to find these small channels that are opening into the LV cavity. And this was my final result. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. That was very short and sweet. So we can accommodate more cases. We have Dr. Sumit Kumar, Dr. Prateek Singh, even Dr. Sharat Chandra, Anand Subramaniam, Manoj Rohit sir. If anyone, Rahul, anyone would like to contribute? I have one question. Why did you take GL rather than EBU? The left main was wide, it was long.
Yes, so sir, actually in our center, JL was available free of cost. As
Okay.
patient have some financial issues, so I started, definitely I have to take EBU 3.5 for this patient, but due to constraints in money, we used to take only the government supplies.
And second is, do you feel that the diagonal pinch was physiologically important also? It did seem anatomically that it was not a significant pinch to me.
Yes, sir. Sir, by angiographically, it looks like around 60-70%. Hemodynamic patient was hemodynamically stable, but leaving diagonal without doing kissing, it's like if someone will see the angio and then someone will say no, diagonal to pinch over the, and then I feel like to do the focal kissing balloon. And after that, OCT or CST of no any residual stenosis and ostium was fine. So that's why I did a KB. Hemodynamically, patient was fine.
I think FFR in such diagonal also, it turns out to be negative.
Negative, yes. So
Can I ask a question, Shivat sir? Yeah, after the Gaia wire has been placed in LED, and once you got a decent flow, would you like to exchange it with a routine workhorse wire like a BMW? Because the Gaia kind of wire, when it is left for a significant time, it can produce further trouble. I would use a CTO kind of wire for the shortest duration possible. Exchange it with some other wire, maybe with the help of a microcatheter, or in fact, many times you can just pass it by the side of that. Once a channel has been opened up. That's my suggestion. Use it for the shortest duration possible. In fact, many of these wires are radio opaque. They give you less good, visualization of the vessel at the site of stenosis.
Yes, sir. So, but most of the time, whenever I do CTOs, I'm not able to cross the fine cross or microcatheter over the Gaia wire. So I have to exchange the fine cross with the balloon, 1 inch small balloon. So it's very difficult to exchange immediately after crossing the region, the Gaia wires.
No, after balloon dilatation only. Go ahead with the balloon dilatation and then, do it.
Yeah. Sure, sir.
Saurabh, Pro grade is not the best microcatheter. It's actually a neuro intervention catheter. So, you should, you'll have better coronary dedicated, you'll have lower profiles, maybe that will help more. And what Dr. Sharat Chandra is saying is absolutely valid, that try to change for, a less traumatic workhorse wire. And you can always, there are so many techniques of changing, pre-dilate, dilate with a small balloon and then change, and then you'll be much safer. Otherwise, nicely done case, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Saurabh, 2 points. I think when you were first working with the microcatheter and you used the first wire, Fielder XT, and subsequently Gaia 2, I thought the microcatheter was a little too close to the tip of the where you were working. You need to keep the microcatheter a little proximal so that you have wire movement which is controllable. If you're too close to the tip, then there may be some issue. And second point is that once it was a short segment CTO.
Yes, sir.
Once you have crossed the CTO, then we have to be very careful while using this CTO wires like Gaia 2 and Gaia 3. Because when you're working on the CTO, obviously some movement is required, but distally the vessel is normal. And sometime perforation can occur at that time. So we have to be extremely careful once we have crossed it. And that is what Dr. Sharata also meant, that we should try to be out of that as quickly as possible. And we have to be very careful as long as this CTO wire is inside the vessel. When you're pushing the balloon on top of it, many times the tip of the guide wire would move when you are crossing that lesion with a 1.5 millimeter balloon. So it is extremely important that we have control of the tip of the guide wire, that along the whole assembly moves and the tip of the guide wire may cause perforation. So these are only small, some of the issues which we need to be careful about, but microculture should be a little more proximal to get the benefit of what Gaia curve gives you.
Sir, I just want to make one point that collaterals appear like they are going inside the LV cavity, and then I reviewed the literature, and there are some series from the China that showed that after opening the CTO, this collateral got opened and they look like perforations. So it happened with me, and then I want to share it with all of us.
It is not at all uncommon. Sir, fantastic points, and you cannot do better than learning from the teachers. One more thing I would have done, if you're forced to use a JL guide, I would have left a wire in the diagonal. It would have helped you in two ways. It would have held your guide in place and given you a little bit more support. What Bali sir said about the microcatheter is absolutely perfect. The microcatheter's role is not to jam it in the CTO. It is just meant to give minimum torque to the wire so that your very, very large curves do not end up damaging the vessel before you manage to cross it correctly. But real pleasure to be part of this show.
Thank you, sir.
So we move to Dr. Nikhil Chaudhary.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
So I'll just try to share my screen and so wishing everyone Merry Xmas and really thankful to Dr. Smith for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, so can you see my slides?
Yes.
Great. So my case is actually a case which started off as a CTO, and so I'm presenting this because it just gives a lot of information into how to approach a CTO, the hardware, and what challenges we face, especially if you have a tortuous CTO. So just a second. So my case is a difficult antigrade wiring with escalation de-escalation in a tortuous LED CTO. Patient was a 45-year-old male, and he had some chest pain 2 years back, and so for which he did not seek any medical attention. But last 1 year he was having class 3 angina and dyspnea. ECG showed poor R-wave progression, and echo showed a hypokinetic LED territory within fairly mild LV dysfunction. And so this was his diagnostic coronary angiogram. So you can see quite ectatic coronaries, and LCX was ectatic, distal a small size vessel and diffusely diseased. LED is the point of interest here. Showed maybe this was the thrombotic presentation initially, and you can see a diagonal flowing. Some microchannel probably showing flow inside the main LED. But again, a very ectatic vessel. This is the epicranial view. Again, not a good view to appreciate the LED here. Just want you to go through this this diagnostic view. So there is a proximal 80% stenosis, a lot of debris inside the LED, and some ectasia at the midpoint, after which the diagonal arises. And so you can basically appreciate some microchannel going inside the distal LED. This is the LA caudal view. Again, same pictures, but of course there is a mix of ectasia and some thrombotic debris material from the old ACS. And this was the right coronary artery view showing good retrograde filling of the whole of the LED, and the distal LED looks fairly mild plaquing, not no significant lesion in the distal LED. Again, RCA is an ectatic vessel. And so looking at this again, looks like a very good case if initially antegrade attempt failed, to do a retrograde attempt. So basically counseled them and started with the femoral. I put in a femoral sheath and thought I'll use the radial for the retrograde injection. So I tried to actually use a JR for to the radial approach, but there was radial spasm. So retrograde injection was not possible, and I had already given 10,000 units of heparin. So didn't puncture the left femoral artery, and I thought let me try antegradely. I could see a microchannel. So femoral route I tried hooked with a EBU 3.5, and you can appreciate initially wanted to cross a whisper wire and then take a microcatheter there, but you can see that even the proximal LAD, it is difficult to cross, and my wire is slipping into the left circumflex. So then tried with a whisper, then progressed to a fighter and a fielder XT. Probably my wiring inside the proximal LAD cleared some of the thrombus, and you can see the LAD actually filling up. Although, of course, the LAD arising at a very acute angle and in an ectatic vessel. So then I basically thought I'm not able to wire even the diagonal. So I put a microcatheter and tried to wire with again a fielder XT and a whisper. But even though with the microcatheter support, I was not even able to cross inside the diagonal because of the bend. And then what I did was, this was a fine cross microcatheter. And because of the ectasia, I was not even able to cross inside the diagonal. So here then I de-escalated to a 1.5 mm balloon, and then with actually making a loop of the whisper wire, this was how I got inside the diagonal. And then diagonal was wired, but now the question was, how do I wire this LAD? So you can see this was actually a Gaia wire, but repeatedly as I pulled the wire back from the diagonal into the LAD trying to cross it, the wire again and again kept coming back into the proximal ectatic segment of the LAD. And I tried almost 20-30 times, but the same thing used to happen. So basically then what I did was I again crossed into the diagonal with the same loop technique, then placed a microcatheter inside the diagonal, the fine cross microcatheter. And then through that microcatheter, I took a stiffer wire. I initially tried with the fielder XT, then a Gaia 2, then a whisper, but the same thing used to happen. I was not able to get into the LAD. So then what I did was I actually gave lot of bends, maybe all the 3 wires. I gave lot of shapes to the distal end, but was not able to cross. Then I actually made almost a 360-degree bend instead of pilot 150. And then this loop actually, you can see how it crossed inside the LAD. So I basically made almost a U-shaped bend and then pulled back this pilot 150. And then it actually helped me to enter the microchannel. So after this, I thought I'm inside the LAD and let me place my microcatheter inside to get a better better access. But the angle was such that my fine cross was not able to cross. With just placing the fine cross there and with little pushing and pulling of the microcatheter and maneuvering of the wire, I was able to get my pilot 150 across. So I was basically gently pulling onto the microcatheter and maneuvering the wire, which helped me into getting inside. So again, you can see for filling inside the LED and the diagonal wiring for even in getting inside the main LED was difficult because of the ectasia and tortuosity, and my microcatheter refused to go. So just inched the fine cross, and with again pushing and pulling of the microcatheter and maneuvering of the wire, I was able to get the pilot 150 across. Then wired inside the distal LED. Then pre-dilated with sequential balloons. And after pre-dilatation, I found my wire was inside the diagonal, not inside the LED. So maneuvered that inside the LED. So yeah. So this was the result after pre-dilatation, and then gradually did more of some pre-dilatation, and then stented with distal 3028 and the proximal 3.540 from the ostial LED. And this was the final result. So of course, diagonals again were diseased, but a lot of times during a CTO, one thing you want to avoid is bifurcation in the same setting. So the flow was good. The ostium of both diagonals were good, so I just left it alone. And this was the final result. Ostial left main had some plaquing, so a final angio I had to take out after just dehooking the guide. So just learning points from this case for me were that you have to be patient while doing CTO or near CTO PCI. Multiple hardware, multiple microcatheters might be needed. And of course, if ectatic coronaries are there, it usually presents a lot of challenges. And a lot of times you need to use all your skills, make multiple bends and loops to cross. And sometimes if your micro is not helping you, then you can use a balloon support, and anything can work on any particular day. Thank you everyone for your attention.
I think Nikhil, beautifully done. Excellent demonstration of your wire movement. A couple of points. One is, I think there was a lesion before the diagonal, which was tortuous, and there was a critical stenosis there. And in such lesions, sometime a reverse wire technique does work very well. But the way you moved your wire was absolutely a treat to watch, and manipulating that into the LED from the diagonal with that loop was beautifully done, and very well done. I must congratulate you for demonstrating that part. I would have personally gone and dilated that proximal lesion first, and then gone into the LED, because I thought that was a tortuous and tight lesion which was preventing your wire movement so beautifully. But you did a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It never crossed my mind, sir, to dilate the proximal LED. The only thing on my mind was how to cross. So yes, but that is one thing which could have helped me, right?
So would a retrograde would have made our life very easy? It was a very good retrograde case.
Definitely. But I just wanted to exhaust all my antigrade techniques before moving on to retrograde, and of course not in the same setting. Maybe I would have done it on a different day, because CTO sometimes you better to call the patient maybe after a couple of weeks.
Dr.
2
Samit,
points.
if you look at the retrograde thing, sorry, Ajay, just take 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Look at the retrograde thing, predominantly the collaterals are epicardial.
Epicardial, absolutely.
Yeah, they're
Absolutely.
not transeptal, and epicardial are very prone to rupture, and they should be the last option to you. We do use it sometimes, particularly since the time this SUO wire has become available. But that should be the last option after you have exhausted everything else, and nothing is working, then only use an epicardial. But here what we saw, predominant collaterals were epicardial. Ajay, you are sorry,
Nothing,
but
sir. You already said it. Nothing to say. I was just going to say that the retrograde was actually epicardial, so it is additionally challenging. And just two more things, Nikhil. One, I would have left a wire in the diagonal before making the U bend to enter the distal LED. The issue was it was a beautifully done case. First of all, extremely well done. Bali sir has already spoken of all the points. The reason why your wire was difficult to manipulate was the proximal tight lesion in the proximal LED. But personally, I would have left a wire in the diagonal and then put in a microcatheter, made a U-bend, and then crossed with a hairpin. I don't know if you remember a couple of months back, I had shown a hairpin case and it was exactly identical. It was a CTO and I just crossed with, we were lucky enough to cross the wire, but extremely well done. The other thing is that when I make a hairpin, I will use the softest possible wire that's available. I will never use a hard wire for a hairpin. XTR or whatever softest wire you have is what we use for a hairpin. I would be very scared to use a pilot because sometimes we don't have so much of control over a pilot 150. 250 is all right, but sometimes 150 is a little scary. And lastly, if you could have dilated the proximal lesion, then a dual lumen catheter might have done the job for you as well. If you had just dilated, because I'm sure you could not manipulate the Crusade, it is quite a high profile catheter beyond this proximal lesion, which was so difficult for you to put your fine cross also.
Yes.
We would have had to dilate the proximal LED lesion before putting the Crusade in for the dual lumen catheter. That's all.
Yeah, I think so. Micro catheter went only after the hard part of the wire went inside the LED. Whole of it went inside the LED.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prior to that, that is why it was not progressing ahead.
No, Bali sir called it. The lesion in the proximal LED was the problem. You see, all his manipulation with the initial wire is what has opened. The debris has gone away, and so we are able to see where the distal LED is. So it is actually a 90% followed by an ectatic segment followed by a 99% stenosis in the NED. I think that was the lesion analysis that one can look at. So very well done, Dr. Beautiful case.
Thank you for your points, sir. So this case was done maybe last year, and so that time dual lumen was not available to me. But since that time, I have used dual lumen in at least 5-6 cases, and that really makes things easy, especially in this kind of case where you have a bifurcation and CTO as well. So yes, sir, definitely. Currently, I would have definitely, if I'd done this case today, a dual lumen would have given me good access.
Nikhil has been my master, sir. He was just 6 months ahead of me. So all the tips, tricks, and trade, all I have learned from him. We move ahead, sir, to Dr. Neeraj Bhalla, sir. Dr. Ram has some issues with CD. So after Bhalla, sir, Dr. Ram would be presenting, and in final we'll have with Bali, sir.
So good evening, everyone. Wonderful cases so far. So I'm going to present an RCA CTO, and I'll tell you the case was quite interesting. So this is a 41-year-old male who actually presented with class 4 dyspnea and presented in ADHF with all features of heart failure, S3 gallop and JVP raised till the angle of the jaw, borderline blood pressures. So this was his ECG showing IVCD. Nothing really remarkable to show any significant, any Q waves really. There's some loss of R in the V1 to V3, LA enlargement, sinus rhythm. This is his echo. Echo is very scary. You can see the LV is very poor, very dilated, 7 centimeter LV, hardly contracting. The anterior territory and the apex look practically scarred, but there's global hypokinesia. LV ejection fraction reported as 15%. So this is the case. He has got some pulmonary hypertension. We'll just skip all these. And given this thing, after we decongested him for some time, we took him up for an angiogram, and this is what the angiogram showed. The LAD is diffusely diseased after this first septal, and it looks like a very small vessel distally with extensive diffuse disease. Circumflex looks relatively okay. These are LED views, which are, there's some retrograde filling of the RCA, but the RCA is a proximal CTO. There are bridging collateral, but it's a dominant RCA. And you can see that it's a fairly long segment CTO of and a large dominant vessel. The retrograde filling from the LED was just proximal to the crux, not filling up to this, not filling up to that point where the CTO ended. This was seen to be filling really with homocoronary collaterals. So with this kind of a patient, what we did was to make an assessment of what is the viability. So we did a FDG PET scan. This is what the FDG PET is showing. This is the technetium showing, and this is the FDG scans. So there is almost no perfusion in the technetium scans, as well as in the FDG in the LED territory in the anterior and apical leads. But in the inferior, posterior, and lateral leads, there's very good FDG filling, telling us that the RCA lesion, this is all viable territory. So that was the FDG PET. This is the bullet showing nothing filling up in the LED, but the RCA territory in the FDG is filling up very nicely, telling us that the RCA was viable. And this is what we should try to revascularize this RCA. But these are the problems in this patient. Severe LV dysfunction, hardly any LV ejection fraction. Unfavorable hemodynamics, 2 CTOs, rather LED diffusely diseased and RCA proximal CTO, non-viable LED territory. The lesion was a JCTO score of 3, unknown duration of CTO, blunt entry point. And so all in all, a tough case, a chip case. So what we did was we decided how do we go about this. So first we had to, for a few days, we stabilized this guy when he was a little better. And then we had a heart team discussion that what support can be offered in this chap with a very poor LV. So Impella we don't have, and we find that this is too costly to for our patient. So we have done this, this procedure called partial cardiopulmonary bypass. So what is this and how do we go about it? This is basically we take the support of the cardiac surgical team. They give us a FEM bypass, and the heart-lung machine is moved into the cath lab, and they give us a cardiac output of up to 3.5 liters. That's what we ask for, so that we are able to operate on this patient with a beating heart as well as with the bypass support. If the patient requires further support, then this is goes on to an ECMO circuit. But if the patient is doing well, we are able to wean this patient off, and within the next 24 hours, we get this patient off the bypass, and then that's all that's required. So what we've done this in a couple of cases. What this does is gives us excellent support during the procedure, and it's also reasonably cost effective as compared to Impella. So we had this in the back of our mind, but what we did in this patient was that we could manage without this partial cardiopulmonary bypass, which was available as on standby. But this chap was started on IV milrinone in the morning with Swan-Ganz monitoring by the cardiac anesthesia, and we put in an IABP. So this was the support that we used, and this is the hardware details. The guide cath was JR 3.5, side hole 7 French, microcatheter fine cross. We use multiple wires as usual with balloons, and the technique was antegrade wire escalation. In this case, unusually, although we almost always do, but we did not take contralateral views because this chap had an IABP from the contralateral groin. He had an arterial monitoring going on for the cardiac anesthesia. And also we felt that the entry point was being shown quite nicely by the homocoronary collaterals, and we could manage with that. So this is how the procedure went. So that's the guide. As usual, multiple views being taken to assess the entry point. No clear entry point. I looked in lateral, in RO, LAO, all the views. Started with Fielder XT-A. And what we found was that this was proceeding mostly into the collaterals. And when we checked coaxially, although there was progress, it was not aiming towards the true lumen. So we withdrew and then kept taking some views to understand more. I think in CTO, as the procedure advances, you learn more and more about how the wire is to be manipulated, and where, if it is going there or here, that is this right or is this wrong. So we pulled back, and then we decided that this is not happening in this. So upgraded the wire to Gaia 2. Gaia 2 also went down initially the same path. We tried to pull back the microcatheter and then direct the Gaia wire across, not into the collateral, which pathway we now were familiar with, but try to see whether it is able to progress, like you can see in this view. But still we are not able to get into the distal cap. And again, we realize that this may not be the true. So you can see that there's some downgradation of this. Finally, with Gaia 3 and the microcatheter pulled back, we are now approaching the true lumen. And I think this is where it crosses. So checking, and now we can find that this is much more coaxial in moving in the body of the CTO. And I think finally the Gaia 3 crosses. So gentle movements as usual in the CTO. And that at some point it gives way, and then we are able to enter distally. So this is the Gaia 3. And I can't remember whether we pre-dilated. I think we pre-dilated first with 1.5 and then a 2 millimeter balloon. And then, of course, we exchanged the Gaia 3 for a workhorse. Yeah, this is the Gaia 3 is crossed. And then now we have exchanged it for a workhorse wire. And that's how the RCA looks once we have pre-dilated and opened it. And then the remaining steps are quite standard. This is the stent going in 4 into 38. And that's the stent being dilated, and I'll just show you the final results. Yeah, so I think those are the final results. So huge RCA, and very worthwhile to do the CTO for this patient. So the patient did well after this, and he was tapered off this milrinone infusion, and the IABP could be taken out within the next, I think, 48 hours. Hemodynamics were perfect, and we could discharge him in the next couple of days. So that's the case. Thank you.
Sir, how did you decide the diameter of the stent?
How did we decide? The RCA was a huge vessel, and we did, I mean, it was a 4 millimeter, it looked like a 4 millimeter vessel. So we deployed a 4 millimeter stent. We didn't do any imaging to measure it. but that's what it is. Why do you find it that it should have been less or more?
I would not have gone for a 4 millimeters. You
Would have gone for a 3.5?
maybe even less. Sir.
No. This is a 4 millimeter vessel, and we post dilated with a 4 millimeter balloon.
I would have needed extra courage to put a 4 millimeter balloon there.
But so right size is important.
That is why I wanted to know how to decide without imaging. If we have, maybe Swami sir or Bali sir can tell us.
I want to ask you one question. How commonly?
So your voice is, you need to be louder, closer to the.
Okay. Dr. Neeraj.
Yes.
How often using the
Karath, we can't hear you. We can't see you. We would so much like to see you.
Sir, you've gone down.
Please unmute yourself.
The mic volume is less, I think.
It's gone down, Dr. Saraj. Rather than increasing, you've decreased the mic volume, I think. Sir, maybe you can type it out in the chat. Maybe you can type it out in the chat. We cannot hear you.
And after that, sir, Sumit also has one question. Sumit
Yes.
from Delhi.
So antegrade injection in a proximal CTO is always definitely not a good idea. But in this case, we did not have retrograde control. And like I told you, the retrograde filling was also quite distal. We were not able to see. So we were forced to inject very, very gently. And we had a side hole catheter where very gently we were injecting. But definitely it's a concern, no doubt.
Beautifully done, masterly done, I must say, and beautifully explained also. A few points which are more theoretical rather than on the practical part of crossing the CTO and optimizing the result. One is, if we look at stitch trial, heart failure stitch trial, there was initial results which came up, did not show the benefit of a viability study. Results were same where there was no viability demonstrated as compared to those where viability was demonstrated. And sub-analysis of that study, which was probably a Paris trial or probably a Paris trial, which was a nuclear medicine trial, nuclear study, showed that only in few centers, viability did make a difference. So we are not very clear at this moment whether viability studies would make a difference when you are dealing with revascularization in heart failure. So one part is revascularizing the RCA in this particular patient. And I think if the LAD could also have been revascularized subsequently, maybe on the long term, result would be far better than if we only depend on the viability study. That is one part of the comment I would like to say. The other thing is, despite our understanding of hemodynamics of heart failure and cardiogenic shock, if we look at the literature, there have been no large trials which have demonstrated that if we do hemodynamic monitoring in these patients while revascularizing or subsequently, it makes a difference to the outcome. In fact, whatever trials were carried out using Swan-Ganz pulmonary catheter in the era gone back about 20 years back, they were negative. They showed that, in fact, where hemodynamic studies were used, there were more complication than when hemodynamic was not used. There may be, it is quite likely that the way we use hemodynamic or the catheter which we use, especially when it is not under vision, subsequently in the CCU post-procedure when we use it, and we keep on monitoring the cardiac output and pressures, and we don't know the balloon may be injuring the vessel if it is misplaced or has dropped back into the RVOT or something. But I'm just talking on the theoretical basis. So there's no hardcore data to show that hemodynamic monitoring makes a difference. The third point is as far as IBP is concerned. One is IBP, the shock trial didn't know, but we all use IBP. We know the IBP makes a difference. We would like to use IBP. We would like to use it before starting the procedure. But there is some data coming up that a large IBP, which is called the mega IBP, may be a little more effective in this type of patient. And the last point is, as compared to your partial CA bypass, how does it differ from an ECMO in the procedure? So these are the theoretical questions which I would like you to address, not the hardcore technique which you have beautifully demonstrated.
So my thinking was like this, that I did not want to touch this patient with this very poor LV. And then we had a heart team discussion as to whether this patient with the 2 vessel disease should go for a bypass or should go for medical therapy, or what should we do? The surgeon was also involved. So he said, look, I can do a bypass for the LAD and RCA. But in view of the very poor LV, we thought that this is a high risk intervention for whatever. And we know that high risk CABG with very poor LV rather has worse outcomes than PCI. So to decide the revascularization,
before you go further, I would like to know the basis of that statement.
I'm talking from clinical trial data. I'm not talking of anecdotal. I forget the name of the trial, but I will get back to you. I promise you that high risk, in very severe LV dysfunction, PCI outcomes are better than CABG. This is okay. I will quote the trial. I will quote the trial. We'll leave this aside. But having said that, coming to revascularization, the idea was that what should we do? So we thought that to do a PET scan will give us a more directed approach as to whether this patient will benefit at all or not. And since the LAD territory was totally non-viable, it did not make sense to offer a large procedure like a CABG and to go for the viable territory. So that was the logic for doing the PCI of this patient of the RCO. Second thing is, the hemodynamic monitoring was used by the cardiac anesthetist on the day of the procedure to monitor the procedure and how the patient was behaving in case this patient goes on to cardiopulmonary bypass, or we need to get offer the patient more support. So it was not used to manage heart failure, for which we don't do routinely and which we've given up hemodynamic monitoring years ago, as you have rightly said, that all the evidence showed that routine hemodynamic monitoring rather is detrimental and is not useful. This was done as part of the cardiac anesthetist protocol to monitor the patient's hemodynamics during the process, during the procedure, and immediately in the post-op. So that was the third thing was that how is the cardiopulmonary bypass different from ECMO? The cardiopulmonary bypass, what we have done only few cases, couple of cases. What we do is that we are able to, if we are able to wean them off, the heart-lung machine goes off and then is taken off, or the patient goes off the heart-lung machine in about an hour or 2 hours, or within 6 hours of the procedure, and we don't need to put them onto an ECMO circuit. So there is FEM-FEM bypass. There is a heart-lung machine, which is giving us a cardiac output, which is giving us support. The IABP offers us only a 1.5 liter cardiac output for the support. So I felt that we might be in a situation where if this thing goes wrong, this patient has got no backup. So we wanted to have, but fortunately, using just the IABP as well as they had started on milrinone, which helped the PA pressures to come down from the morning till the afternoon when we started the case significantly. So we could manage to do this without requiring any. In case this patient does not recover or is unable to be weaned off from the cardiopulmonary bypass, the heart-lung machine is replaced by the ECMO circuit. And then this patient is then now on a VA ECMO which goes on, which can go on for a longer term. So that's the difference between the two.
Please get me right. I did not say that RC angioplasty, it was wonderfully done. I'm saying that in addition, at some stage, despite the fact that
I get that. I get
But-
that. I may debate you on that point. I may debate you on that point because
I want
don't
I want you to debate that. So that's why
because the
someone
LAD
there would be nothing without a debate, you know.
yes, the LAD there is a small caliber diffusely diseased vessel. I don't think revascularizing it will be meaningful unless the surgeon does a very large endarterectomy, and we don't know how that
We
is
are
done.
talking of Dr. Neeraj Balla doing something there, not the surgeon doing something.
No. I don't think that is a valid target for angioplasty. I don't think that's a valid target for angioplasty. Otherwise, yeah, it's a very badly diffused disease.
Ajay, your take.
Beautiful case, sir. One comment and one question. My question to Balla sir is, first of all, fabulous case, beautifully done. I wanted to know what would you have done if the Gaia third had not crossed? It crossed and we managed. Suppose it had not crossed, what would have been our next step? And second thing, in our center also, we do use the PA catheter, not only the anesthetist, patients with severe LV dysfunction and elevated LVEDP, when we are forced to do CTO or long or complex intervention, for whatever reason, it's an extremely, how do I say, easy and friendly to use, and we often use nitrates through the PA catheter during the procedure. It keeps our PA pressures down. It gives a little bit of more time. I mean, what procedure you would probably end up in an intubated patient in 15 minutes, you probably add another 15-20 minutes to that if one uses nitrates inside that. And milrinone is another drug that we use very, very commonly. It can be delivered directly into the PA with a little smaller effect on the systemic pressure than IV nitrates are used. It also gives you continuous monitoring, and it tells you maybe a couple of minutes or 5 to 10 minutes in advance that your patient is going to get better or going to get worse.
Yes.
So it is a strategy that we often use in addition to IABP. Peripheral bypass, we have tried, but we actually failed in one patient, and we are using ECMO once in a while. We actually do the whole procedure on ECMO and then decide when you take the patient off the ECMO. And that is, we have done 2 cases like that. But peripheral bypass is an extremely attractive FIM-FEM. Peripheral bypass is an extremely attractive thing. But the size of the catheters involved and the amount of hardware that actually enters the lab for the procedure is so large that you need a fairly large size cath lab console, cath lab room to actually manage all the hardware inside. I mean, you need the ventilator and the FEM bypass and that whole machine. More than 50% of the room is taken up by that, and it leaves the housekeeping becomes extremely difficult. I know it's a silly consideration, but it is a practical consideration that we need to do. So my question for Balla sir is, suppose the Gaia 3 had not crossed, what would we have done then?
Okay.
And the part about the viability, it was something that I had reviewed about 2 months ago. Currently, there is no hard evidence one way or the other, because the number of patients required to look at a trial which will tell us whether we should be opening all CTOs or not is out of the purview of, it just doesn't exist. But the CTO trials, which are the randomized evidence of CTO trials, have shown that it doesn't really improve very much one way or the other. The registry-based data shows that whatever improvement is there is only in patients who have got viability established, reversibility established. When these 2 questions are answered, consensus is to go for them. But definitely these 2, unfortunately, we can't answer these questions perfectly. Even with every single investigation available with us, we are not able to say that there is no hibernating myocardium and that we are not going to have any benefit. And the kind of collaterals that you get to the other normal vessels when one does open a CTO. So it's not possible to say 100% that this CTO opening is not going to make a difference. In that sense, I would agree on one side with Dr. Bali that in case it was feasible, the vessel size was good, even if the viability was not answered perfectly, we might have gone ahead and opened the LED. But I think that's an individual and a debate. So that a debate means that there exist 2 points of view. So I mean, I think that's where I stand. I'm going to sit on the fence on this. But I do agree that vessels which look small sometimes become larger and actually benefit the patient on occasion. In this particular patient, I think the vessel that needed to be done was the RC, and that's done beautifully. But again, I'm very interested, sir. Suppose the Gaia 3 doesn't cross, then what do you do?
So the Gaia 3 is a 3.5 gram tip. All right. I would have used the, since I was through most of the body of the RCA, I would have used a higher weight tip, maybe a taper tip, a 9 gram or a 12 gram. You know, the next family of wires that I would have used, what are they called now? I'm not able to recall.
Confianza. The Confianza Conquest Pro.
Yes, the Confianza and the
have
Conquest Pro, those are taper tips.
Conquest Pro.
Higher, yes, the Conquest Pro, 12 gram, these are taper tips, but I would have made sure that I am at the distal cap of the CTO and just to penetrate that, because getting there, there were many homocoronary collaterals. Getting there and just blindly poking with that Confianza Conquest Pro would have been a bad idea. If I was sure I was just had to penetrate the distal tip, that's what I would have done. I have another case which I wanted to show, but I think we'll do that another time, where this is an LED distal cap not being able to be penetrated. So we'll talk about that. But
So
that's
you-
what I would have. That's how would have gone up to
So
escalate.
you can go ahead with the second case, because giving 5 minutes to Bali sir will not do any justice.
I think we go ahead with other cases.
Yeah. And we'll request Bali sir for our class in February or March. We can.
I think I'm here to listen today. Dr. Neeraj, the point
Yes.
I want to make is that this
Ajay, sir, Ajay, will you do me a favor? Please
Please
check
go
on
ahead,
what
sir.
I said about high risk, low LP dysfunction PCI versus CAV. Please, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Bali,
Will
sir,
do.
please go ahead.
point I'm trying to make is that the type of RCO CTO which you had and the microcatheter from where you were working, because Gaia 3 has its own curve. You should not give a curve in most of the cases. Sometimes we do. So there was in such a case, I would have probably used non-Gaia wire, where I could have made a curve. Like, again, I'm saying that either a Miracle wire or a Conquest Pro or a Confianza, where I could have shaped the tip of the wire to reach to the site where we expected to work on the CPU. Because if a microcatheter had, or I would have used that wire to get the microcatheter to a site where I could work on my that site. Because if we're working, there's a proximal RCA bend, and that RCA bend is a problem when we are working with a Gaia wire. We want to cross that RCA bend and then let the Gaia work. So that's a small technical point I would like you to respond to.
Sir, I'm just, yeah, okay. Now I'm going to show you what I do. What is the Gaia tip and what I do? Because the Gaia tip, can you see this? This is the Gaia tip, sir. This is the Gaia tip you can make out. You'll agree that it's got a small tip. It doesn't have a bend. It has a small tip at the bend.
Yeah, sure.
What I always do is I make a very short secondary, small secondary, which allows me to manipulate in the body of the this thing. Otherwise, it's just a straight wire. It's like, you're not able to get any torque on it. What I make a very small bend on a Fielder XT wire, which is floppy, but on the Gaia, which is a slight, I make a slight tip, and then this is a bend, and that helps me. That's what I find.
I agree with you, because I had a debate with a number of people internationally in some of the forums where I showed them that you can make actually a curve in the Gaia 2
Yes.
and 3. The others were not agreeing. The company doesn't propose that. But yes, you are very right that after a lot of experience, you
Yes.
can make a curve in the proximal part beyond that to negotiate.
And that actually helps you to maneuver better inside.
Most people don't do it.
So, if I may be allowed a comment, sir.
You're a master.
Always, Ajay, always.
No, sir, I completely agree. Only thing is then the way that we use the Gaia after giving a bend is a little different from the way we use it before giving a bend. We also sometimes have to give a bend to the Gaia, but I say have because the Gaia performs best when it is not bent. But in a given case where you know what the problem is and you're trying to solve it, that you find that the cap is at a little bit of an eccentric orientation with respect to the long axis of the vessel. The Gaia works best when there is a stump which is tapered clearly. But sometimes when you have a blunt stump and you have a sixth sense or an inkling of where the ostium is, or which direction you want to go in the body of the CTO, and you're not able to get there with a straight Gaia, in that case, you can give a bend. But then the way in which one uses the Gaia when there is no bend is you go 90 degrees and backwards, and you kind of inch forward. I don't know if I can show that on the screen. That is the way in which one inches forward. Whereas when one gives the bend, in that case, you cannot torque the wire more than 30 degrees without causing luminal damage, unless you are in the substance and you don't mind going subintimal. So what I wanted to ask Malla sir was that suppose the Gaia third had not crossed, what we would have done was we would have kept the microcatheter up to there and probably palpated with one of the wires which give us a little bit more of feedback, maybe a UB3 or a Miracle 6 or something like that, tried to get it to the substance. If we managed to get in, then I felt actually that the CTO segment, the true CTO segment was extremely short. And then if we managed to negotiate that the only issue was re-entry, then we would probably have switched to a higher Confianza for a re-entry, stick, put a microcatheter in place, come back down to a smaller wire, get back into this distal true lumen. Alternatively, we would have knuckled the wire down beside and beneath, and then re-punctured the tip. I mean, not exactly like a cross post. I mean, that's the direction I was thinking of taking the discussion in.
Incidentally, there is another wire by the name of Gaia Next, which has become
Next, and Gladius also. There is a wire called Gladius also, sir. And that is beyond the Gaia Next. The Gaia Next, they say, is actually meant for calcified CTOs. And it is a little harder with this little bit of a, I mean, I've used it only in 3 cases. And sorry, should I continue?
Yes, please. Tell us the characteristics of the Gaia Next and the Gladius.
I think you need to use the wire maybe 10 or 15 times before you can actually speak about the characteristics clearly. But what I have found about the Next is that it actually has a little bit of a transition, and it has slightly more body than the third. And the tip actually remains absolutely manipulatable. So when you have a tortuous calcified CTO, I would choose a Gaia Next as the wire after my second, instead of going up to the third, because then you still retain some control of what it does in the body with a little more penetration power and a little more torqueability than the Gaia third, if that's possible. Very often in the substance of the body, although the Gaia wires are very good and you still retain control over them, when the CTO segment is longer than 10-15 millimeters, the tip pretty much does what it wants to. You retain little less control. That control is improved with Next.
Okay, good to know. So, Smith, am I done?
Yes, sir. You have one more case, or we'll move to Dr. Ram if he is ready with his CD.
I think it will be only fair to Dr. Ram, who's been waiting for a long time, to move to that case.
So there's no problem. We can have it him in February again. January, we plan that we'll honor the next batch of our alumni. Otherwise, we'll have it in February. Bali sir, I have already requested that we'll have it. So it's between Dr. Bhalla and Dr. Ram to decide whoever wants to.
No, I presented one case. Let Dr. Ram present. Let Dr. Ram. I think that's fair.
Thank you.
So we'll have you again in February with the same case. Dr. Neeraj.
Sure.
Is it visible, sir? Smith, is it visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir, for giving me opportunity. I think it's too late, but still I will run through this case, which I did it recently, around 3 weeks back. So my patient was a 64-year-old male who was a diabetic and post CABG in 2004 with the moderate LV dysfunction. He recently had an ACS with troponin was positive. The ECG showed T-wave inversions in inferior leads. And after that, he was having class 2 to class 3 angina for last 1 month. So I did its angiogram, diagnostic angiogram, which showed native triple vessel disease with flowing left system by Lima and occluded SVG to RCA. So I planned it for a native RCA CTO intervention. This was the native vessels in which only the ramus is flowing with a stenosis at the ostium of ramus, but both the LED and L6 are having chronic total occlusions So I decided to intervene in this right coronary because there was a blunt stump end at the SVG to RCA, and the whole of the left system was filling by lima, and there was one radial artery which was anastomosed to OM from lima. This was the whole left system filling via the lima. So I decided to start with the a guide which can give me a good support. It was a XB-RCA guide catheter, 6 French. I started with the initially I tried this thing Whisper MS wire, but it was too tough for CTO by feeling. So I decided to change to Fielder XT, which was a Ox wire, but there was no progress. So I upgraded to Gaia Third initially. I took the Gaia Third inside the body of the CTO, and my guide catheter was giving me good support. So after some progress, I was unable to maneuver the Gaia wire inside the body of the CTO. And after this bend, I was unable to move the Gaia further or unable to take it down from the fine cross microcatheter. So after this thing, I took back the Gaia wire, and I took a Fielder XT new wire. And via this bend, I was able to negotiate this Fielder XT into the distal RCA gradually. And then it was okay to park the Fielder XT into PLV. So it was safely parked. I was unable to cross my fine cross catheter by a direct push. So I rotated the fine cross catheter over this Fielder XT wire gradually by multiple rotations, and I was able to take it across the lesion. Then I took a check shoot by the fine cross microcatheter with 1 ml Luer-Lok syringe, and to confirm whether I was in true lumen or not. So it was okay to be in true lumen. Then I changed via this fine cross. I changed the wire to Grand Slam wire because I knew that it will not give me a good support. So this was a Grand Slam wire. After this, I started dilating the lesion, and I took multiple balloons. 1 into 5 millimeter balloon, then 1.25 into 8, then 1.5 into 10. But I was unable to dilate it fully, especially in the mid part of the CTO. And this was the picture at the after the pre-dilatation. So I again started dilating with the proximal part with the Euphora 2 into 10 millimeter balloon. But still, I was unable to cross after this this RV branch. I mean, none of my balloon was crossing. As some flow appeared in the distal RCA, the graft from RCA started having some filling, which was grossly dilated and regenerated in thrombotic graft. But still, I was unable to take any balloon across this lesion. There was multiple unsuccessful attempt with multiple rupture of balloons because probably there was a calcium chunk. I tried with the balloons, and also I tried with the buddy wire as well. I tried with 2 wires inside the RCA, but none of the balloon was able to cross across this mid RCA lesion. So ultimately, my right coronary was dissected from mid, and I was not having any root ablation on shelf. So I decided to take it on a later date. So I was able to open up the CTO, but not complete it successfully. And planning to do this after 2 to 3 weeks of once this seals. So this was the final result. Whether it was a success or failure, I do not know. I had a dissected flowing RC at the end. I opened up 4 wires and 6 balloons. And now the plan is to do a root ablation after 4 weeks. And with 1 DES, with of course with use of imaging, because I was unable to take any imaging catheter down this vessel in the mid part of the procedure. So I would say that CTO intervention requires time, patience, and money, and timely wire escalation and de-escalation both are important. Microcatheter use as well as use of support wire should be emphasized. I did try the rotation of the balloon over the wire, which helped me entering this CTO, but again, after the middle part, it was uncrossable. And despite all efforts, it is sometimes better to give it up for some another day. Thank you.
The last line is very good, sir. CTO with ETO.
Yeah, we try sometimes, but definitely it should not be attempted, I feel, so. Due to lack of money. So money is the most. Any comments, sir?
I think these things do happen, and heavily calcified lesion rupture, and then we need an alternative strategy, which could be rotablator or sometime IVL or a rotashock to get through that. OPN, multiple views, you can say, and it's a good, I would say, policy to come back another day because a lot of contrast has been used, a lot of time has also been used. And do it another day. So it's a very good strategy to do so. And calcified arteries are a challenge in itself, and that can be a type of discussion on another day. You have made very good points, carry home message, all very, very valid. And as we talk about multiple plans, we should also talk about when to come another day. That should also be part of the strategy.
Sometimes the hematoma, sir, goes away, that it may allow more balloons to pass. That can happen.
Is Neeraj there? I just, Neeraj, are you there?
Absolutely, very much.
Yeah, I think the point you were making was probably referring to the optimum registry, and which came up about a couple of months back, and which showed that in those patients where surgery was refused for whatever reason, and severe left ventricle dysfunction being one of them, in those patients when angioplasty was attempted, the result of PCI were better than medical management. That is what that study showed in surgically refused patients. But we don't have data or any study to compare angioplasty and bypass in severe LV dysfunction and show that angioplasty is better than that. The only study was Stitch heart failure study, which showed that CABG was superior to that. But when I was just going through that, I remember that optimum study. If you are referring to that, then that is the non-surgical, surgically refused patients.
Right. I am not able to recall where I've read that, but I will definitely get back to you if I have any further information on that.
Absolutely.
So, great. Dr. Ram, first of all, lovely case. And what you have done has now got an official name. It's called an investment procedure. That's what I showed in my algorithm. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. You had a perfectly acceptable result at the end, and it's called an investment procedure for that reason, that you are not able to get your hardware across, you get some flow across. You've definitely improved what the patient started out with. And it is not, there is no shame in running away, because you can come back and give a good result on another day. And since you got through your wires, only thing I was wondering, when you were taking your antegrade wire across, did you have any idea of the course of the RCA? I mean, because somebody might start without seeing where the RCA is. I was wondering, you must have had some idea of where the RCA was, or no? Okay. In that case, sometimes it's not a bad idea put a wire through. I know it's not recommended on, but we've done it once in a while. Even if you don't inject, you can put a wire through the graft. Sometimes the wire will go and land up in the distal RCA, and it will give you a target of where to put your wire through into your native RCA. I'm not saying that you inject, don't take any hardware, don't take any balloon, but sometimes where wire will go and sit, and it gives you a target as to where the distal RCA is. Because in your left Lima injection, I saw some retrograde flow into the PD. And it's sometimes not a great idea to keep injecting into the Lima to see where your wire needs to go. But this could have given you a target. Sometimes it works. It does work once in a while. And Bali said, don't you think that in case the patients for whom severe LV dysfunction were actually surgical turndowns, the surgeon knew that he can't really operate there. And that is why they were taken up for PCI. So I think that's a fair comparison.
Unfortunately, in scientific literature, this argument doesn't work out. That it is so. It has to be shown to be so.
Also, I mean, the history of TAVR is like that. The only patients who were approved for TAVR initially were surgical turndowns, were patients in whom they were so high risk that they could not be operated. And today we know that we not only match the results, we outperform them. So, I mean, we have to start somewhere. So probably the first step there is that. The only thing is to get such a large database and to get societal acceptance may not be so difficult. But as sir said, there is no hard randomized, double-blind, controlled, trial-based evidence to compare these two. There was a trial called Awesome. It's quite long ago. It's a very old trial, but it did show actually that surgical results in patients with LV dysfunction and multivessel disease were actually better than PTCA. But that was I think nearly 15, 16 years ago. Apart from that, only what sir mentioned I remember. But I'm definitely going to review this a little bit more and more news. Watch this space, as they say. We'll come up with a review in some time.
So just a final question: where do we use side hole? Or where we should use side hole catheter? Dr. Bhalla has used it in his case. So, what would be the ideal indication for a side hole catheters?
No, the
So
only,
again,
only indication for that is if your guide catheter is causing damping and you are getting bradycardia, or getting fall in pressure. So sometimes we do use side holes, and initially we used to make the side holes on the table. But there is one downside to this, that it gives us a false sense of safety, and we end up using more contrast than we would have used otherwise. So we do use a side hole, but be aware that that is not the panacea. So that has its downside too.
Yeah.
I have been, also hearing and thinking about this, false sense of security, but it always gives me a good sense of security. Never regretted using side hole catheters. I have regretted not using, but never regretted using side hole catheter. Yes, you do use a little more contrast, but I do think that the benefit it gives you in the pressure is authentic rather than a false sense of security. I mean, we've heard this, but if I review my own practice, I've never regretted using it. That's how I would, that's been my experience.
I am the exact opposite, sir. I would never use a side hole. I just don't use a side hole. But then that is individual practice. As I said, this is what this is what we do when we talk to each other. In our this one, side holes, not using a side hole has, in my mind, 3 advantages. Number one, when you're hooked. If you have ostial dissection, or if you have ostial disease, when your guide sits and your pressure damps, you're hooked. You know exactly where the ostium is, and it helps you to keep your hardware safe as far as possible. If you use a side hole, sometimes your guide is going to go deep in. If there is ostial disease, you won't know, and you'll realize that there's a dissection only at the end of the procedure. You keep seeing the pressure and you think the pressure is fine. And this is what, we have learned from experience. So, we are not as skilled with our guide catheter handling as Bhalla sir is. So I'm a little more scared. With the use of a guideliner, you can probably get as much hardware as you want into whichever part of the coronary anatomy, however badly diseased the ostium of your coronary artery is. So as far as possible, we would not really use a side hole. I've seen sir making side holes in my residency 15, 16 years ago. And we also used to do that, but we have stopped using it. But then this is an extreme view.
Neeraj,
Third advantage.
many times what we do is, if you are concerned about damping, I use a radial 5 French or something just to give me a pressure.
Yeah,
And
there's so many.
systemic pressure is. So you're not depending on the handhole pressure from the guide catheter. And we are only concerned about bradycardia and things like that. So if systemic pressure is nice, then there's no problem. The second thing is that once you have hooked, and you have passed a wire, you can take out the guide, disengage it, and then work on it. There's no problem about that part. And third thing is, if it is just hooking, it is giving you a flat line and something, then take the tip of the guide wire right at the tip of the guide catheter and pass it in a flying manner. And then there is no problem. So very rarely but I think everybody should have experience of making side holes and using a side hole guide catheter, but it should be rare.
No, the only thing is that in a CTO where you need to get support and you need your guide catheter to, really do what it's supposed to do. That's when, you can't manipulate it also. Anyway, I guess.
No, Neeraj, the point is in CTO, the artery is occluded.
Yes,
And if
true.
you have another vessel which is giving you a pressure,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
No, I points are taken that I think point is taken, but I mean, whenever I made a side hole catheter, I have not had to regret having that, I jammed it in or dissected it. Although that is definitely the main thing is that if you jam it in and you're injecting in an end space, you can cause dissection, but fortunately that has not happened, and I feel a little bit comfort. But yes, these are absolutely valid points. So it's a practice. It's how you feel comfortable, doing a job. And I think that's why we are having all these discussions, and we all learn from each other.
No,
So
there are no white and black. There's a lot of gray areas, and each one has his own way. Of doing it. No problem.
Dr. Ram wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just asking that when we are doing CTO, then it does not matter whether the pressure is damping or not, because anyway we are having a pressure from the arterial sheath at femoral end. So whenever we are having osteal disease, and then probably side hole is more important to get the flow inside the artery. Is it right, sir? When we are doing some distal RC intervention in osteal RCS disease, then probably side hole is important.
So then what you can do is, if your guide catheter is only there to provide a platform and not support, you can manipulate. Once you wire it, you can get your guide out, and then, you are able to control your guide cath rather than, but in a CTO situation where you have, you need to platform your guide and you need that support and it needs to be there for a long time. At least I feel more comfortable having that. In an osteal lesion, you can, manipulate your guide in and out once you've wired it nicely.
Right, sir. I think it's for the first time we have exceeded 9:30. It's close to 10 now. So we'll have, I think, and Bali, sir, it would be justice that we give you a whole session on getting one case.
It's absolute pleasure listening. There's no problem.
So we'll plan more cases.
We are now in the Margdarshan. What is that? So there's no problem.
I'm very happy with the discussion that took, sir, and I thank all of you, sir. And this January, sir, I'll need Ajay Swami, sir, your help. We need to locate and approach the next batch of our alumni. So I'll get into touch with you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Always.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
Thank you everyone for lovely comments and discussion. Real pleasure to be here. Real pleasure to be here and to see everyone. Alisa, Ajay, thank you, Smith, for a very nicely organized show. Thank you.
Ajay, Neeraj, I was just pulling you because last time you skipped your CTO session.
Sir, his CTO session is due, sir.
You are allowed, sir. You are allowed to pull any time. Okay. Bye-bye.
Right, sir. Right, sir.